the sidelines of this summit here in Budapest. I'd like to just begin by, because obviously over the last 48 hours we have a very consequential election in the United States, huge impact for Europe. Viktor Orban has talked about drinking champagne at the election of Trump. Were you drinking champagne last night? And also, what can we expect here from the presidency of the United States?
Well, of course, we were drinking champagne. It's a big and important week for Hungary. I think it's a big and important week for the entire world. But U.S. elections has a meaning for European politics as well, and we are very happy. It's probably just a coincidence, but today and tomorrow, European leaders are coming here and discussing how Europe should react on the consequences of the American elections, and we have an opportunity to talk finally about things openly and probably raise some issues where we should considering changing our previous strategy.
And we understand that Viktor Orban has spoken to Donald Trump, and we understand there were also big plans that came from that discussion. Can you put some contours around what sort of big plans are in store?
I would mention probably two elements. The first one is the war. Obviously, Donald Trump during the campaign was promising to try to end the war in our neighborhood in Ukraine, which is obviously a vital issue for us. And he talked about the importance of restoring communication channels with the Russians and also maintaining them with the Ukrainians, and try to bring them back to the negotiation tables. We hope that we Hungarians can also play a role. In the last 2.5 years. The word outside the West was pro-peace, but so far we inside the West were having a minority opinion, because the rest was following the American liberal strategy, which was about the continuation of the war and the conflict. Now it started, so I hope that the time will come for peacemakers. The second is the bilateral issue. The American-Hungarian relations are actually in many ways in a good shape in the field of economy or military cooperation, but in the last 4 years it was complicated with the Democrats, since they have a liberal ideology based foreign policy, and they are also pushing this ideology towards the allies as well, and it's quite hard to cooperate if you are coming from conservative political circles. Now it's changed, so I hope the new phrase can be opened in the bilateral relations as well.
And on the question of Ukraine, every sort of leader that I've spoken to as they're walking in, and other government officials I've spoken to over the last 48 hours, say that despite the sort of victory of Trump, it does not change their position on relinquishing sovereign territory of Ukraine. Would you be okay with an arrangement that would surrender Ukrainian territory to Russia?
So the Hungarian position from the first day of the question is that if you want to make a peace, and if you try to analyze how peace was done in conflicts like this, where there was no clear winning or losing side, it's obvious that there will be no time to, have a prepared and detailed peace plan, and then from one day another accepted by all parties. So the peacemaking process itself, it's a very complicated, and diplomatically it's a very complex issue, which should be first about restoring communication channels, then secondly talk about short-term ceasefire, try to keep the short-term ceasefire, and use this as a window of opportunity to sit down. It's going to be very hard, it's going to be very complicated, but the sooner we start it, I think it's the better for everyone. This is why Hungary has no clear stance on that, because the time is not there yet. First communication, and sit down and start negotiating.
And you've been involved with the Trump campaign in certain domains, and in sort of coming up with policy. There have been also comments about the $50 billion that have been promised to Ukraine, backed by the G7. You said that the fate of that is uncertain. Do you have any concrete ideas of what Donald Trump plans to do about those $50 billion?
No, I don't have any concrete ideas in connection with that kind of money. I think that Donald Trump and his team was very serious about trying to finish the conflict, and they will use all efforts they have, the financial resources,
the military support resources and every resources to try to convince the parties to sit down and come to an end to this conflict. And then it requires a completely different mindset, because the current strategy, the current money transfer system, the current military support system is based on the continuation of the conflict as long as it takes, as the phrase says. So a different mindset requires a different asset management from the American side. So we will obviously experience some changes on that field as well.
And I'd like to also get your idea of how this sort of changes the balance of power within Europe. How does a Trump presidency change Hungary's position within Europe, and does it make sort of Viktor Orban Trump's man in Europe?
Well, Viktor Orban tries to remain the man of Hungarians in Europe, so this is our position, and we like to keep it that way. But in the last years, we had some serious conflicts with the Brazilian liberal elites, because if there is a wind coming from the other part of the ocean, which is a liberal ideology-based wind, talking about the importance of open borders, multiculturalism, talking about the importance of woke ideology, talking about very radical green agenda, then the European liberal elites in an autopilot mode most likely follow these policies, which was very bad for Hungary. So we hope that the European elites will realize the different policies, priorities coming from the other side of the ocean, and they will adapt to that new kind of situation, and they will realize that they should also offer a broader maneuvering space for all the member states, even if they disagree with the liberal policies.
But one way that the Hungarians have had a liberal policy is, let's say, economic policy and open trade policy and tariffs. You've been very opposed to tariffs. Donald Trump has said it's his favorite word. What do you say about sort of Trump's ambitions on tariffs? This could significantly hurt the Hungarian economy, which obviously has more and more manufacturing.
So I think in the last 4 years, when the European elite was in an autopilot mode following the American policy, it was a mistake, because if you seen the Draghi report or the Letta report, it had a very negative consequence on Europe's competitiveness and economic success. So now we Europeans are in a bad situation, because we were in an autopilot following mode of the American liberal policies. It should be done another way. Donald Trump's policy and the way of understanding of the world, which is very often described as America First policy, it's very good, because he can say that his decisions are based on the American national interest. Now it's time for Europeans to say that our decisions are based on Europeans and our country's national interest as well. And on that regard, we should have serious discussions and should be able to defend our interest and make deals with the Americans. When the tariffs was in the RRR was coming from the United States, our immediate response was we should also introduce these tariffs and then sit down and start negotiation. But it was rejected by the liberals that we cannot do it with the Europeans. So I think in this respect, the new era should come as well in Brussels.
And just another sort of point is that Hungary's also gotten very close to China on a number of sort of economic issues. Trump has been made no secret of his sort of distaste with the Chinese economic policies. If he forces Hungary to make a choice between the U.S. and China, who does Hungary choose?
Well, Hungary in general is rejecting a world view or a new kind of world order where there are blocks. So
but President Trump may not.
Our idea, I understand that point, that the United States of America is in a systematic, so-called, as they call it, a systematic rivalry with China. We are a small country, and there are 190 other countries on the world who share our position. What we want is that we don't want to turn this rivalry into a direct third world war. We want to avoid, during the world order transformation process, direct confrontation. And we reject the idea in general of dividing the world into blocks. On our basis of our own national interest, we would like to maintain cooperation with everybody. And I think it would be a fair deal for all the big guys in the rooms, all the big players, because they can also benefit cooperating with the Hungarians. This is a new world order. This is how it looks like. It's an age of sovereignty, not an age of neoliberalism as it was in the last 30 years. We have to speed up with the adaptation process, but the first and foremost important thing is to stick to your own national interest.
And a final question, will we hear from Donald Trump here at the event either today or tomorrow? Will he make an appearance before European leaders? By video, I should add.
No, I don't think that it's going to happen.
Do you think that the line of communication should be open between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin?
I think so. As soon as we can, all communication channels should be restored, because otherwise, how we want to manage the peace? If we are not communicating with each other, we're just only managing a war.
And to your knowledge, are those paths of communications open now?
No, I don't know about it.